Hey, I'm Andrew,
And I'm Christian.
and welcome to the Brain Rack, Episode 3 on softwares, particularly more of operating systems on different computers.
Yep. Today we will be trying to expound more on the iOS
Mm-hmm.
and Linux.
And Linux.
Linux is really big, by the way.
iOS in your Apple products as iPhones, iPods, Macintoshes are, as far as I know, or what I speculate to be coded maybe a little differently, so making for a more stable operating system, though a much more user-friendly and not very much elbow room as far as modifying the operating system in itself.
Correct.
For
That's why it's very good for people who don't know computers very much.
though they still have plenty of like software options of
Correct.
like what you can put right on and run with
And the other thing is it's a little bit more virus-free
Mhm.
for those that don't really want to worry about that a whole lot.
Right.
The reason is Apple is extremely limiting on what apps they will put on it. Not limiting, but yes, limiting, but very selective. Let's put it that way.
Because I'm sure there's
Very protective too.
right. Because it's you gotta have certain. You gotta meet up to the criteria of what they
Yep.
want on the iTunes store
Yes.
and things of that matter.
Now you might be able to hack it so you can get different programs onto it, but that's going outside of iTunes.
Yeah. So it would be kind of difficult. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's some people trying to make that happen, but
Well, yeah, people who want to have an iPhone
Yeah.
but still have it like Linux or Macintosh. Now, Linux, I believe Apple iOS is a breed of Linux.
right.
So let's talk more about Linux now. Linux has many different builds for it, and many different branches of those builds.
Probably the most flexible of all
Yes.
all three operating systems.
You can have 3 different builds of Linux on it, and they're all the newest model. What's up with that? You can have 3 builds of Linux, and they're all the newest.
Yeah.
It's because there's at least three different branches of it: Arch, Linux, and then the other 2, which I'm not entirely.
But there's three different
At least 3 different types.
three different branches of
base Linux,
base Linux
and
operating
then
systems.
iOS. I believe that's a base of Linux as well, or from the base Linux.
Which is actually pretty interesting, being that I thought that it was it was kind of its own coding in and of itself. But being
Yeah.
that it's Linux based, it's basically if you take a computer model and if you make it very user friendly and
Linux is basically, you can make it as difficult to use as you want, meaning more customizability, or you can make it as simple as you want, more user-friendly.
Right.
Apple did it user-friendly.
so that way more people could just hop on and be like, oh, I want to try this.
Yep.
Or I want to do this. I want to go on the web. I want to search the App Store. I want to make a movie. I want to record a song.
Yep.
Just get in there and just start hammering
Without
away at it.
fiddling with downloading software or trying to install it, knowing which folder to put it in, stuff like that.
Yeah, even though there's kind of some of that like safe places, they keep it like pretty open and on there.
Yeah.
I've used 2 out of the 3 operating systems. I've used iOS some, and I've mostly used Windows.
Yep. I've used a little bit on the Linux. A friend of mine, which we might have as a guest on Linux, maybe. Maybe I know we'll be doing that in the 2nd season, maybe.
Yeah, second season.
2nd season is when we will probably start doing the guests.
Bringing in guests.
Correct. Not yet, obviously, but then. Anyways, just stating that right now. But he knows a lot about Linux because he uses it. That's where I learned about the Arch
And the other two branches.
Yeah, he has two of them. But yeah, there's some things different about them, and that's where I learned most of my stuff on Linux.
No, really interesting. Going back to the iOS, to the operating system for Apple.
Yes.
It was pretty revolutionary when it came out, or as you can probably imagine, like the very devout Apple fans are very devout people, and they'll do anything to keep up with Apple's latest tech.
Oh boy. Like stand in front of the store for 6 hours.
One account of one gal was going to try to attempt to stand outside an Apple store like 7 months out before the release of the 6th iPhone.
Okay, that's a little bit too long.
A little extreme, but you can imagine with all their innovations and what they try to pioneer into, they'll, devout Apple users will scoop it up and just try to use it, and some people like to call it the cult of Apple. But moving on to, I remember watching, like, it's interesting to dive into like operating system histories and computer histories. That's why I'm really kind of brushed up on Windows stuff, and I did watch one Steve Jobs presentation when he was really, really young. Like he had most of his hair, and it was black at the time. It had black hair, and he introduced the first Macintosh in 1984, and how he had
before I was born, 8 years. Wow.
And this Macintosh was able to actually introduce Steve Jobs, gave an introduction to Steve Jobs with how it was written, and they kind of showed a presentation on a bigger screen, like, it has this application, it has this application,
nice.
You can do this on it, and people were just like, whoa, it's so cool. It's just, you could hear lots of avid cheering in this audience, in this congregating people at this convention.
Yep.
Really revolutionary for 1984, and just a really interesting video.
Yeah, no doubt. It's just really interesting. OSs and stuff.
And of course, the reaction was kind of the same with introducing the first iPhone. When he introduced the first iPhone, like, the biggest reaction, like, we released a new, we have a new iPod coming, and we have a new Safari server coming, and then the biggest reaction was, and we're finally getting into the mobile phone, and that of course got the biggest reaction. And he's like, but here's the thing, this isn't 3 different devices, no, this is all one device. And he pulled out the first iPhone from his pocket, and he's like, this is the iPhone. And people were just, of course, amazed and astonished, and I'm sure that iPhone is somewhere out there bought by somebody, the same iPhone that Steve Jobs held,
probably
bought up by somebody on eBay, something of that matter.
For probably a very large sum.
That, or could be archived away in the
Apple Vault.
In the Apple Vault.
I don't know if that's the actual name. If it is, then they
the
should change
iVault.
it to the iVault. Yeah. Anyways.
Of course, I really liked how he kind of said that no, most smartphones have like the integrated keyboard, and if you need to update it, then how are you going to make it conform to the hardware aspect? He said, now this iPhone, it doesn't have an integrated keyboard. The keyboard is actually, this phone is actually all touchscreen, and if you need to make updates to it, you can update the keyboard with the software, and da-da-da-da-da. And so he and his company mostly prone towards software friendly, or more software than hardware. so that way you can, and of course user friendly too, because if you want to get a phone, if you want to get a smartphone, and you don't really use it much, if you just use it to call and text people, then probably the iPhone probably be your better bet.
Yeah. Unless you just want to use it to call and text, not anything else, then just go with a basic phone.
Sure.
You don't really need a smartphone to do those two things.
Right.
Now, if you want to FaceTime or Skype people, that might be a little bit different story.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Skype and FaceTime. FaceTime is the iPhone style of Skype. Skype is broad.
With many devices.
Yes. Well, many devices, many
platforms.
OSs.
Operating systems, sure.
Yes. Because you can get it on Windows, you can get it on Mac, you can probably get it on Linux.
Probably more than likely, yeah, I can imagine so.
So you can get it on all the different operating systems that we have covered. There are a couple of others, but those are more lower level.
Yeah.
Under the radar, basically, of mainstream media. But the other thing is, with Skype, you can go cross-platform and still communicate with them. FaceTime is I only.
Yeah.
So, yeah. The other thing is, they are video phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
If you've seen video movies or TV shows that have video calling on them, like there's one from Archie Comics, if you guys know about those. Veronica had one of those in a futuristic Archie comic one.
Right.
It was kind of funny. They had like a picture. They took a picture and put it in front of the camera. If they had like bed hair, still in their pajamas, stuff like that. It was actually kind of humorous.
Or like if you've seen the second Back to the Future of how McFly talked to his boss on that big screen video call, like how he did that.
Yeah. Or in newer movies that, and I really don't suggest watching the second Back to the Future. Just saying. But anyways, in some of the newer movies, like one, I forget the name of it, they actually had your home TV hooked up with a camera like on his laptop here, kind of like that, in your home living room, and then you can communicate with your boss at work via video call. That is cool.
So, anyways, we reached our limit for this one.
Yes, we did.
Next time, should we go more into the mobile phone softwares? Say.
Yeah, I think that would be a good one for the next.
Yeah, because we talked about the iOS software, like say with phones.
Oh yeah, we should start talking about Windows.
Windows Phone.
Windows Phone and Android.
And Android.
Yeah, those two would be good because we did delve in a little bit into the iPhone.
Right.
So, thank you for tuning in, and talk with you later. Have a great one.